The views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the participants and do not reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
BronxNet. Your voice, your views, your vision.
And good morning and welcome to Open. I'm your host, Darren Hyman. Of course, you're watching the one and only interactive talk show, bringing the best of the Bronx and the world right to you. First up, America has voted and President Barack Obama has been reelected to a second term. Coming up, we'll talk with a panel of political analysts who will give us a full election recap. Plus, even though President Obama came away with victory last night, many Americans still remain dissatisfied with party politics. We'll have a discussion about the impact of the Latino vote in last night's final decision and how this rising demographic will affect future political influence. And the other major story affecting our area, New York braces for possible another nor'easter. Coming right on the heels of Hurricane Sandy, we will track its movements. And as Hurricane Sandy left many New Yorkers without food and water as well as shelter, we'll hear what one organization is doing to help in the recovery effort. And also, while residents were affected by Sandy, a huge number of small businesses throughout the tri-state area have also been damaged and displaced in its aftermath. We'll introduce you to a business who is working to make a difference. So stay tuned because all this and much more is heading your way, because right now we're officially open. Hello, Bronxites. I'm your host, Darren Hyman, and today is Wednesday, November 7th, and you are watching Open, the only live and interactive program bringing the Bronx and New York straight to your TV set. We do want to hear from you, so feel free throughout the show to email us with any questions or comments or even possible story ideas that you have for the show. We also want to let you know that you can hit us up on Facebook by searching under Open, BronxNet Television, and Twitter by following our page at BronxNet TV. And you can watch us live right from our website at bronxnet.org. Well, after millions of dollars of media campaign ads and campaign pledges and promises, the race to the White House is now over, with President Barack Obama winning re-election last night over Massachusetts Governor Mitt Romney. With the election now over and the morning after now upon us, questions still loom as to what is going to happen in the future, some of which include: does President Obama's victory mean, what does actually President Obama's victory mean for the Democratic Party? Also, how will the Republican Party deal with major losses in key battleground states? For these answers and a more in-depth review of last night's wins and losses, we turn now to a panel of bipartisan political experts. We start now with Republican analyst Brandon Bryce, and he joins us here. And for the Republican Party, obviously not what you wanted to see. I think the major question that comes to rise is there's about 4 states that you definitely pretty much thought that you had on lock. It doesn't occur that way. What went wrong?
Well, I think a few things went wrong. I think the evangelical vote, which was expected, didn't turn out. I think the military vote, unfortunately, did not turn out as it seemed, with the exception of Virginia. And I think overall, you just didn't have a big voter turnout. The Hispanic vote played a major role. I think the Hurricane Sandy actually gave Obama kind of its last support system.
A tipping point?
Tipping point in a very close election. And so, I think you had 4 out of the 5 states which were expected to actually go Republican. Unfortunately, at the Senate level, did not go Republican. So I think it was just a matter of, the voter turnout necessarily didn't come out for the Republicans.
One of the things that was always the criticism of Governor Romney was the fact that he was not able to swell that conservative effort.
Right.
Looking at last night's, it seems kind of apparent that that's the case.
Well, and I think part of that was also why he brought on Paul Ryan. Paul Ryan was supposed to also galvanize kind of the Republican base, but I think it speaks to a much more critical issue in that the messaging, and I heard it on Fox and MSNBC last night, the messaging of the Republican Party has to change. We've got to come to a platform of really being relevant to the issues. Jobs are important, but also, the safety net issue, it's critical. And we have to really, and I think In this instance, President Obama articulated that issue a lot more, and in some cases better than Governor Romney did. And the overall consensus was that Romney was the rich Republican guy who only focused on the rich. And even though I disagree with that statement, that was the general consensus for many electoral voters yesterday.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me ask this question. When you have the situation of Governor Romney, going out there, a lot of times putting the foot in the mouth with a lot of key statements and things that were said, pretty much comes back to bite, because when you look at the way that the voter turnout came out and the numbers, it looks as though a lot of things that was actually said, and America really was fed up with a lot of displeasure with as far as the campaign speech.
Well, it's interesting. I think that's actually what made Governor Romney attractive as a candidate, is that he wasn't a politician. He was a businessman. And he was a man that actually understood how to create jobs. And even though the unemployment issue was the critical issue, it baffles me that unfortunately the votes didn't come out. We lost, I think, by about 1 million votes. And certain votes that we were supposed to get simply didn't come out. I think what's interesting, if you're talking about, in the election case, if you're talking about the evangelical vote, which was a major vote, much of the evangelicals tend to be lower income. And so when you're talking about the perception that Governor Romney didn't care about that 47%, I think unfortunately may have came back last night to haunt the administration.
Let me take a quick break and come back and continue our conversation with Brandon Brice. We are bipartisan. We'll have a Democratic strategist who will join us on set in just a few seconds. You're watching Open. Stay right here with us.
Be free. Nice, Dad. Nice, Dad. Nice.
Charles!
Nice, Dad.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of siblings in foster care who'll take you just as you are.
Hands can do incredible things. Now they can even help save a life with hands-only CPR. If you see an adult suddenly collapse, just call 911, then push hard and fast in the center of the chest until help arrives. Learn more at handsonlycpr.org.
There is also a very attractive extended warranty option that includes free service and parts for the next 5 years. But there's no need for you to get that. You failed to get the test you needed at the doctor that would have detected disease early enough where it could have been treated. So you won't be around in 2 years to see him grow up, which means the warranty would be useless. Okay, sign here, please.
For a list of tests every man should have, go to ahrq.gov.
I'm lucky. Let me help you with that. I get to do something I love. It has nothing to do with touchdowns or titles. Everybody bring it in. I get to play a part in the life of someone just starting out. How many of you think homework is just as important as teamwork? I help keep kids in school. Good. And that's the name of the game. My name is LaDainian Thomason. I don't just wear the shirt, I live it.
Give, advocate, volunteer. Live United.
Back here on Open, Darren Jaime here with you. We continue our conversation recapping yesterday's presidential election. President Barack Obama winning in the general election, 303 electoral votes. Mitt Romney, 206. Questions still loom on both sides as to where we go from here. Being joined by our political analysts who are both in studio, Brandon Brice representing the Republican side, and we got Roy Paul, a familiar face who's here, a Democratic strategist. And Roy, let me get you in here on the conversation. Obviously a great night for the Democrats, but yet and still, even though President Obama was able to come away with victory, there was some real serious understanding that America is a divided country.
Absolutely. I think what we saw last night is that America understands what was at stake in this election. Mitt Romney said binders full of women in one of the debates that got a lot of traction. But I think what he saw is that instead of binders full of women, there were binders full of voters that came out in support of what the president was talking about, which was that we need to protect women's rights. We need to make sure that health care is there. Social Security needs to be protected for young people. And that's what the voters aligned themselves with. Now, to what you said, it's absolutely true. Now that we're here, Now we've got to govern and we have to lead. And so it's going to take a bipartisan effort with the members of Congress and the Senate and in the House to make sure that we pass some legislation that affects the American people.
Brendan, last week we talked about how the House and the Senate are, there's still some swift changes there.
Right.
Losing the Republican Party, losing some Senate seats as well. Yeah. The question is what is going to happen when we get back to Washington? Are we going to see the actual stalemate that we saw for the first 4 years, or is there going to be a more bipartisan effort to get some bills passed?
Well, I think what's interesting is when the Republican Party gets back to Washington, they're going to have to make a decision. They're going to have to make a decision if they're going to continue the stalemate. Obviously, it's an emotional time. Unfortunately, we didn't pick up the Senate. Or are they going to decide if it's business or economic related, are we going to move on the president's agenda? And so I think Speaker Boehner is going to have an incredible decision to make, whether he's going to play ball or in many cases whether he's going to play politics to make sure that we don't have a radical agenda of budget spending that we simply can't afford.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that goes to the president's credit was the grassroots effort. It seems as though in those key battleground states, you saw a great amount of voter turnout, a lot of new registered voters. It seemed like the Obama campaign spent a lot of time in those battleground states, particularly at the grassroots level. Do you agree, disagree that that probably was the tipping point yesterday? And on your part, Brandon, let me ask the question about Mitt Romney. Was he as aggressive as he needed to be in those same areas where the Obama campaign definitely was able to pull out neat victory?
I would say well, there's a couple things. I think the first issue is I think he may have waited too long to talk about Mormonism. I think that was the first issue. I think in the convention, he did a very good job of saying who he was and what he articulated, but he waited until the convention. I think I would have had that conversation maybe back in May or June. And so I think the familiarity piece was one thing. The second thing is I think he should have painted more on the issue of business and why lower taxation is critical to small business owners, particularly minority small business owners. I think that would have been more relevant. And so I think he did a good job towards the end. But I think once you wait until the convention and you wait towards the 3 debates, it's kind of too late in American politics.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that it's very difficult as someone who ran for political office and ran against opponents. For Mitt Romney, it's very difficult to run against someone who has charisma, who appeals to a broad base of people and can sing Al Green, especially when you are stiff. I watched a video with him on Fox, and he was trying to flip pancakes. He clearly has never flipped pancakes in his life, so he can't relate to average voters. But I still give Mitt Romney a lot of credit, because this is a guy who stands for absolutely nothing, who gave no specifics on his own tax plan, and became the nominee of a national party. I'm still stuck on how that happened.
I actually disagree with that.
You disagree with that?
I disagree with that because I think
with what?
He did stand for something. He stood for business. He stood for understanding and helping the economy grow. Now, how he articulated that, I think we can debate. But I think the clear message was, I will get our budget back on track.
He never gave specifics on how he would do that.
Well,
to me, if you say I can grow trees, but you have no plan on how to grow trees, you can't grow trees.
But
you can't make things up just by saying it.
The clear message was getting our economic budget back on track, taking a $16 trillion deficit and bringing it down, and getting unemployment back on track as well. The issue is, I think, when we're talking about what happened, I think the messaging was not only a viral point in this debate, but I think the messaging for the Republican Party simply needs to change. I think we saw that in a lot of Fox polls, and even in MSNBC, they talked about the messaging for the Senate. How do you lose 5 Senate seats in 5 states that we were supposed to take? So clearly there's a messaging issue here, and I think nationally, connecting to the voter and realizing that America is changing is a critical piece for this for the future of the party.
Very quickly before we wrap up, Hurricane Sandy, how much of a tipping point was that for the president?
Oh, it won. It made him. It got him the election.
I think Haley Barbour said it was God sent. Unfortunately, I think that it was an opportunity for Obama at the very last minute to finally show leadership that we've been waiting for, that we hadn't seen.
All right. Well, you will catch both of these gentlemen on Perspectives. We want you to stay tuned to Perspectives this week. They will be our guests on Perspectives, giving us a full in-depth analysis for 30 minutes, talking about yesterday's election, and you will catch them there. Roy Paul, Brandon Bryce, thank you so much for being with us here and on Open. And we want to tell you, coming up next, the Latino demographic was a major game changer in last night's outcome. Coming up, syndicated columnist Miguel Perez will weigh in with his thoughts on why the Latino vote won't be taken for granted in any party in the future.
Did you find that flashlight in the battery?
Yes.
Did you make sure we're not missing anything in the first aid kit?
Yup.
Did you go through the plan with the kids again?
Yes. The more you prepare today, the more you'll be able to reduce the devastating effects of a tornado, an earthquake, a power outage, or any other disaster.
Welcome home, man.
I'm lucky. Let me help you with that. I get to do something I love. It has nothing to do with touchdowns or titles. Everybody bring it in. I get to play a part in the life of someone just starting out. How many of you think homework is just as important as teamwork? I help keep kids in school. Good. And that's the name of the game. My name is LaDainian Thomason. I don't just wear the shirt, I live it.
Give, advocate, volunteer. Live United.
And welcome back. Remember, we are live and real time here on Open, so join in on the conversation by sending us an email to open@bronxnet.org. Well, with only two viable options, many voters are forced to elect a candidate they don't necessarily believe represent their views, and instead of vote against, and I should say, and again, vote against the candidate that they truly might not be in favor of. As President Obama garnered a majority of Latino voters, some say a vote for the president is not necessarily a vote of confidence. Syndicated columnist and chair of the Department of Journalism, Communications, and Theater at Lehman College, Miguel Perez, now joins us on the show. And Miguel, good to have you.
Hey, how are you?
I'm
Good to be with you.
doing good. Listen, a lot of people are saying even though the president was able to garner the Latino vote yesterday, Latinos are still dissatisfied both with the president and with the Republican Party with regards to addressing their concerns. Your thoughts?
Absolutely true. And, my problem with Obama has been that he always seems to come around to talk to Latinos only when he needs their vote. And so during this presidential campaign, he's been very active seeking the Latino vote and talking about immigrations and so forth. But he waited until he was running. He didn't do it when he had many opportunities before. So, but, the point of the column that I wrote about all of this and how I voted is that, Latinos have really had no choice. It was easier than ever for Latinos, in my opinion, because of who the opponent was. It's not that we were voting for Obama, it's that we were voting against Romney. We had to vote against Romney because basically he outlined an agenda during his campaign that was totally against immigrants and against Latinos. I mean, supporting Arizona's anti-immigrant law, which also discriminates against legal Latinos just for looking Latino, racial profiling. This is what we saw in Romney, and obviously we had to reject.
Well, let me ask the question here, because the question is, as you talk about Arizona, that was one of the states that Mitt Romney was able to win 56% of the vote compared to 43% for President Barack Obama. Arizona was that state won by Mitt Romney. One of the questions remains is about the DREAM Act, the fact that the president did do something in regards to the DREAM Act, and then also the fact that, listen, as you have President Obama now on the agenda of speaking to immigration and things like that, will that continue moving from 2012 to 2016? Do you think that'll be the case?
Oh, yeah, and not only that, the president has said so. He said so. He told the Des Moines Register recently in an off-the-record interview that later came on the record. That's where he basically outlined what he really intends to do. And one of the things he says he really wants to do is go back to his promise of trying to reform immigration. So people, in the Hispanic community should be very optimistic right now because of what happened last night. I mean, Obama has a much better shot, I think, of reforming immigration, especially now, because I think some Republicans in Congress are going to have to give in to the pressure.
Well,
especially for these kids who really deserve to be given some kind of legalization here, these dreamers.
Let me move to the other side of the aisle. What can the Republican Party do better to court the Latino vote? Obviously, some people are saying the Democrats will not always walk away with the Latino vote if the Republican Party seems to take the Latino constituency a little bit more seriously. They can possibly garner some votes. What's the message for Republican Party leaders to be able to bridge the gap and be able to connect to the Latino community?
They have to tell the xenophobes, the bigoted, that small portion of their party, which is often the same thing as the Tea Party, which has been driving the Republican Party. They have to tell them to cut it out. They have to tell them to basically to shut up and stop, offending immigrants and offending Latinos, using undocumented immigrants as guinea pigs. Unless they stop doing that, unless they become much more compassionate, or at least they show that they're much more compassionate toward immigrants, they're never going to get the Latino vote. Now, obviously, this is what everybody's talking about today, how the Republican Party is going to have to reevaluate itself and find a new composition of followers, of voters, because obviously white men are not going to do it for them. Angry white men are not going to win any election here. They need diversity, and they don't have it right now. So obviously people like Marco Rubio, senator from Florida, who is a Republican, are now being pressured to become much more pro-immigrant than they have been, because even Marco Rubio has been catering to the anti-immigrant part of their party. But now he's supposed to lead the party away from that. So we'll see what happens.
Do we see a Marco Rubio on a presidential ticket? Because obviously the question is going to come to the hearts and minds of many people is, with the Latino vote being the way that it is, the demographic now rising, being the majority here in the United States of America, are we going to be able to see a Latino in either running for president and or vice president in 2016? Because many people believe, with that being said, that could be a possible game changer.
It could be, and it's unfortunate because many of us, let's say that they named Marco Rubio a vice presidential candidate, which was a possibility even this year. What it would do is a lot of Latinos would vote for him just because of his last name, not because of his policies. What the Republicans need to do, first of all, is change their policies. Until now, they have had this strategy of trying to get Latino support only by naming a few token Latino politicians in their party to positions, and they think that this is enough. And those Latinos that they sort of bring in and get elected, they have to follow the Republican Party line, which is anti-Latino, which has been the case with Marco Rubio and the governor of New Mexico, the governor of Nevada. Right now are Sandoval. They're Republicans, but they're Republicans who follow the Tea Party line. These are anti-Latino Latinos. So unless the Republican Party is going to be willing to talk about the policies and the issues, not just electing a few token Latinos that they can say, oh, yeah, we understand Latinos because we have one here. No, you have one here who doesn't understand us. So that doesn't help us. Mm-hmm. So that's the question right now, whether the Republican Party policies, its frame of mind about the Latino community, not just elect a couple of Latinos and think that they're doing something for us.
So in essence, election and yesterday's vote, many people will say, when it comes regards to the Latino community, they were pretty much voting for the best of the worst. They weren't necessarily voting for President Barack Obama, but they were saying that we'll take the best of the worst. True? Okay, I think we have a little problem with Miguel, and we do have some technical difficulty. Miguel back in a few seconds. Syndicated columnist Miguel Perez with us. We apologize for that technical difficulty. We do have to take a quick break, but when we return, we are going to hear about relief efforts as we switch pace for a few seconds, talking about Hurricane Sandy. We'll have that in a few seconds, and then we'll also be joined by our other political analyst, Mark Myritz, when we return.
Welcome home, man.
And we're back here on Open. We apologize for the technical difficulty we had with syndicated columnist Miguel Perez, and we've got him back on the line and straightened out now. And Miguel, we want to get ready to wrap things up, but I want to let you finish your point about what you were saying about voting. And I asked the question about necessarily yesterday's vote was not a vote of confidence for the president, but actually voting for the best of the worst. And you were saying? I guess he wasn't saying much. All right, well, we got to fix our technical difficulties with syndicated columnist Miguel Perez, who'll join us in a few minutes. Well, about a week ago, the tri-state area experienced the worst storm in history, displacing thousands of New Yorkers. Many individuals and organizations that were affected have assisted in the recovery efforts, working to help people get back on their feet. Here now to tell us more about what is being done in the Bronx to help those affected is James Rouse, and he's the president of American Planning. And good to have you back, James. And
thanks, appreciate it.
And as we talk about this comes on the heels of possibly a nor'easter storm coming our way right now.
Exactly. You know, the nor'easter that's coming is one of our, more standard storms, just kind of like high wind gusts, a lot of rain, and just what we're normally seeing. But given what's just happened with, Hurricane or Superstorm Sandy, this can be potentially devastating, especially to our coastal communities, so to City Island, Throgs Neck, and what happened in the rest of the region, South Shore of Long Island, Rockaways, and New Jersey. So we're hoping and we're praying that it's not going to be as bad as they're saying it's going to be.
Here in New York, New Yorkers have been generous in the relief efforts. We've seen people from out of state, in state, really rally to the cause of helping those victims affected by Hurricane Sandy. Here in our area, what have we seen and what have you seen locally?
Well, it's been amazing. My day job is, I work for the borough president, capital programs. Last night, I stopped by the Kingsbridge Armory for a few hours. And it was an amazing relief effort because people haven't been talking about the Bronx as a place that was hit and devastated, but the eastern part of the Bronx, City Island and such, have been affected a lot. But regardless, the mobilization that's happening at the Kingsbridge Armory of just people bringing food, bringing clothes, bringing water, bringing medicine. Last night, I walked into a prayer service because a group from Ohio had driven 15 hours to assist, and they were going back. They said, well, before you leave, I want to do a prayer service and thank you for your efforts. I was helping move some bottles of water and cans of food with a family who drove from Minnesota to help out. So the efforts in the borough have been a lot, a lot of neighbors coming out, a lot of the churches involved. It's been really great, and just, people taking upon their own self to get up, drive down to Staten Island, drive down to the Rockaways, and drive down to the South Shore of Long Island, which are the most affected areas.
The Bronx is a major staging area for both the military as well as for civilian volunteers. What are you seeing at the Kingsbridge Armory? What can you bring back to us of what the pictures are at the Kingsbridge Armory right now?
Well, it's just you have about 100, 150 volunteers at any given time, and they took about a third or about half the Armory drill floor, and they just have tarp out, and it's like you got cans of food here, you got bottles of water here, you got toiletries over here, and what they're having happen is vans and buses and trucks come in, they load up, they go out, they go down to the areas most affected. When I arrived there last night, they were headed to Coney Island to help folks down there because they're still damaged, still without power. Businesses still aren't open.
On my flight in from LaGuardia, they were telling us that pretty much if you're headed towards the Belt Parkway, don't even think about it because the Belt Parkway is still on shutdown. Make sure that you use alternate routes to try to get to the Belt Parkway. Those areas are still adversely affected. Are we going to see? Are you still asking for more of a push in terms of getting relief supplies and things of that nature in?
Absolutely. Relief, I keep telling people it's going to be a marathon, not a sprint. Right now is the immediate relief effort, just getting supplies in. People are going to be, for example, Breezy Point, half the neighborhood was wiped out. So how do we help those people there? Because people don't want to leave. People love their neighborhoods. They, very strong, strong working class community out there. Same with City Island, that was badly flooded and, Tony's unfortunately burnt down. It's, what are the strategies in the future? And, that's what, my organization will work on. But right now we need to focus on how do we get food, water, how do we get power, how do we get communication, basic communication back up.
So what's the message you bring here today?
Is that, New York and New Jersey are not regions that usually deal with hurricanes or storms like this. And so what we need to do is develop strategies for the future. Maybe, we have to look at how we build along the shore. Do we build as close? Do we implement zoning regulations that require people to have living quarters starting at the second floor if you live within a mile radius of the shore? Because it may mean the difference between, okay, my garage got flooded and my whole living room got flooded and my house floated away. It's things as simple as that.
And there are going to have to be some things. And when we look at, the effects of Hurricane Sandy, you talked about Breezy Point, a whole community. It's been literally, it's literally been devastated. There has to be a game plan to start back all over again. Given the fact that this hurricane did occur, there is a sentiment that we can't do things the way that we did it before. Something has to change. What do you think we might see as a change in a possible future in the rebuilding of Breezy Point?
Well, what's really great is that the mindset of the public has changed over the last 10 years, and the concept of green is kind of instilled in the mainstream right now, and that's huge. That includes not only buying a hybrid or energy efficient light bulbs, but it's like, how do we do ecological restoration? Breezy Point and places along the Long Island Sound has had their marshland depleted over years, largely because of industry and dredging, things like that. How do we strategize and use the strategies that we're building buildings green and building communities green? There's a concept called sustainable communities where it's just like, you can grow, you can build, but do it with the surrounding topography, surrounding natural community that you're building. So it's rethinking that and looking at strategies that work so that maybe the water will rise a foot less in a certain community and save homes and save lives.
What can we expect to see coming out of your office in a few?
Well, what we're doing right now is that we've spoken with various high-level officials. I've spoken with FEMA, I've spoken with the New York State Department of State, and a lot of community development corporations who are just desperate for help. They're saying, you have planners, we don't know where to start. It's just kind of, we'll do the immediate relief efforts, but how do we prevent this from happening again? How do I reopen the businesses in my community? How should we do it next time? And my organization, that's what we, we'll come in, we'll sit with them, and as I said, marathon, not a sprint. We'll sit there and work with them for months, try to come up with a vision, try to do what's necessary for the community as well as what the community wants.
James Rouse, thank you for joining us. How do people get in touch with you in regards to planning, is also if we can get some information about that?
My best way to reach me is via email. It's jrouse, JRAUSSE, AICP @gmail.com. That's my APA address.
All right. Thank you so much, James Rouse, for joining us, and thanks for the work you're doing.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All righty. Well, we have to take a quick break, but when we return, we'll hear about the latest in the world of politics again. But first, Bronx Borough President Ruben Diaz Jr. and Councilman James Baca have organized to help those affected by Hurricane Sandy around New York City. Our BronxNet correspondent, Nealali Rodriguez, has more.
We're here at East Tremont, where Bronx Borough President Ruben Diaz Jr. and New York City Councilman James Baca have gathered Bronxites to join on a hurricane relief effort in Staten Island.
Here in my office on Tremont Avenue, we're collecting food and go through your cabinets and get rid of the cans that you really don't need. The canned food, the macaronis, things like that we have in our refrigerators or in our cabinets that we can give and that we may never use, but we bought. We also looked at the situation on Staten Island and in Breezy Point, Queens, and the Rockaways, and there are people much, much worse than those of us here in the Bronx. So we want to help those families. And we are a good community, and people came forth in an unbelievable way. It was an absolute avalanche once we announced what we were doing.
We have a group of about 45 staff members from Directions for Our Youth here. We're seeing the suffering and all the things that those victims are going through right now, and we want to say we're here. We're here to support you, as little as providing a little bit of time, donating a little bit of item. It's part of what community-based organizations are about.
It's our duty to take care of our own, and we're New Yorkers. We're the toughest out there. If you're willing, able, you're physically able to pick things up, come out, do something, because you know what? It could just be you next time. You never know, and you want to give your best to everybody.
We had our issues over the last 4 or 5 days. We're doing much better, so we're going to lend ourselves through volunteers, through food, through clothing and supplies, and we're going to go out there to our sister boroughs, particularly Staten Island, to make sure that they know that the Bronx is with them, not just in prayers, but actually with bodies, with equipment, with resources. And I just got off the phone with the Staten Island Borough President. He's so excited and he's so happy that the Bronx is not staying home, that we're taking our goodwill, our resiliency, and our charity on the road.
These buses packed full of volunteers may be headed towards Staten Island, but everyone in the tri-state area is encouraged to lend a helping hand with the relief effort. Reporting for BronxNet, this is Neilani Rodriguez.
Be free. Nice, Dad. Nice, Dad. Nice, Dad.
Charles!
Nice, Dad.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of siblings in foster care who'll take you just as you are.
Welcome back. As the Democrats celebrate another victory in the presidential election, many are asking the question what the Republican Party has done wrong and how could they have won the race. Here now to talk more about the election and the latest in the world of politics and our local scene is political analyst and SUNY Maritime professor Mark Meyritz. We also want to let you know that in regards to yesterday's local elections, the Democrats with a clean sweep. In the 13th District, Charles Rangel, 14th District, Joseph Crowley, 15th District, Congressman Jose Serrano, and District 16, Eliot Engel, all Democrats incumbents, all won their seats. Joining us now, as we said, political analyst Mark Meyritz. And Mark, good to have you.
Hi, Darren. How are you?
Doing wonderful, Mark. And as we look back to yesterday, a major victory for the Democrats and the Republicans, somewhat scratching their head. Your thoughts on yesterday's events?
Well, actually, I was listening to your interview with Roy Paul and Brandon Bryce, and I think they raised some interesting points. I'd just like to comment on them if I could, just to start off. I think Roy's point was that Romney had no positions and didn't stand for anything. And I think that Brandon said that the problem with the Republicans is either they're going to have to play ball or not play politics. I think that I wouldn't agree with either of those points. First of all, Romney definitely had a plan. It just was not accepted by the American people. More importantly, there's a matter of tone and maybe even a class struggle going on here. I think that's all about Bain Capital and the 47%, and those issues resonated very strongly, including the, I think, progressive turn in the American populace. Obama was masterful in touching all the proper bases in society that he needed to get his support. Now, on the point about the bipartisanship, I don't think it's accurate to put it all on the Republicans, to my mind. Bipartisanship is a two-way street, and both the Democrats and the Republicans are going to have to work together in the future. We have some huge problems down the road, the fiscal cliff, all the things Brandon related to those as well, the deficit, and all these issues. Clearly, the American people did not accept Romney's solutions to that problem. And I don't think that solving the problem is going to be finger-pointing between the Democrats and the Republicans.
Let me jump in here and say, listen, the big thing was that a lot of people thought that the Republican Party would be able to garner more seats in the Senate. That did not happen. So when you look at what happened in the Senate, what kind of message does that send, and what should we be looking for out of that?
I think the message is very clear. we have a country that wanted the status quo. It's a country that did not want to make any big changes. They kept the Democratic control of the Senate, the Republican control of the House, and President Obama in the White House. Now that means that the populace or the people are worried of this polarization, this concern about these issues, and they did not want to make any precipitous changes at this juncture. But going forward, I believe that this thing called bipartisanship, I don't know if it's realistic or not, but it's simplistic to say that if the Republicans don't play ball, then the next midterm election is going to be very bad for them. I think the president at this point is going to have, waking up this morning, realizes now he really has the world on his shoulders, because he's now in his second term, so this is his legacy.
You spoke a little bit about saying that there was people pretty much wanted to keep things the same. Let's keep it in perspective, though. When you look at the popular vote, you look at 51,726,493. That's the vote for President Barack Obama. 51,457,489 voted for Mitt Romney. Very close. So even though we're talking about electoral college, when you talk about the popular vote was very close. So there are Americans out there, and there is a country that is actually divided.
Well, the country is definitely divided, and the country is definitely polarized. But that's why we have an executive branch. That's why the founding fathers came up with a president as an individual, not as an institution, to be able to unify the people, to go directly to the people. You mentioned the Electoral College, though. It's interesting to note that you talk about the popular vote, but in actuality, it is the electoral vote that's determinative. And now there's a lot of talk about the electoral vote, but that was the game. That was the game changer, the ability to win in those states.
Absolutely. That was a game changer. We know that was a game changer when it came to Al Gore losing to George Bush. That was basically on the virtue of the Electoral College, because it certainly wasn't by the popular vote. But when you see a vote so close, and when you see, and you have to respect the Electoral College because that's how presidents decided. But when you look at the popular vote, it also brings to mind the question on bipartisanship. You have to be able to sit at the table and talk and address some issues, because when you have an America that is this divided, come 2016, it's a fair game. Is it true or not true?
Well, trying to get over these problems of the deficit, the fiscal cliff, etc. As I say, I think that this is going to be on President Obama's shoulders. He got this vote of confidence from the American people to have a second term, which is a great privilege to have a second term. He now has that responsibility. He cannot finger point against the Republicans. I mean, I totally understand the point that the Republicans have taken the position that they took in the first term. But it is feasible, and for example, President Clinton did, to work with the other side. And that will mean sacrifices and compromises on both parts. So there has to be a stopping of this finger pointing and this vilifying of the parties but one by the other. I think the American people are sick and tired of it also. You mentioned 2016. I think it's a darn shame that billions of dollars were spent on these campaigns. At the end of the day, what did we get out of it? We basically got the status quo. So I think we have to have a rethinking and a revisiting of our entire political system, because clearly it does not work properly. It produced, as you said, Darren, a divided population, a status quo election with momentous problems that nobody seems to be able to solve. I mean, we're over the campaign now. So President Obama, a masterful campaigner, unbelievable campaign, brilliant. That's over now. Now he's got to go to the second term. He's got to roll up his sleeves and do the job that the American people elected him to do, which is to bring us all together and figure out some solutions to these impossibly difficult problems. And I have every confidence that he has the ability to do that.
Well, let me jump in here and ask the question. I'm going to pose the same question I posed to Roy and Brandon just a few minutes ago. Do you believe that going into this next session of Congress, are we going to see bipartisanship? It is a lame duck session of Congress, but are we going to begin to see bipartisanship, or are we going to continue to see the equal stalemate that we've seen that got us to where we are today?
Well, I mean, as far as the lame duck session, nothing much will be done in that session, as is traditional. But as far as the next session, the Republicans are clearly concerned about their status at this point. To become irrelevant as a party is the possibility for the Republican Party. The Republican Party has failed to resonate with all of the major ethnic groups in this country. Let's be realistic. I mean, Catholics in Ohio, I think, went for Obama. Latinos went for Obama. African Americans went for Obama. The Jewish vote went for Obama. Who is voting for the Republicans? Some evangelicals, and even some of those, I think, as Brandon pointed out, might have not been so enthusiastic because of Romney's Mormonism. I mean, who's voting? And then there's the 1% or the 53% or whoever those are. I mean, the Republican Party's image is, from a class point of view, is elitist party of a bunch of rich people, and they've got to overcome that. I have said this for a long, long time about the Republicans, that they are unable to communicate with ethnic Americans, with African Americans, with Latino Americans, with Jewish Americans. They have no idea how to communicate with them. If they don't learn how to communicate with them, they're going to become irrelevant in our politics.
Do you believe that with the Latino vote coming up, and there's only literally is only a 300,000 vote difference, I should say, in the popular vote? That's the equivalent of sometimes one small city, one major city, however you really want to look at it. That could be the difference in terms of a popular vote. Do you see in 2016 the Latino vote being even more increasing with voter registration, voter mobilization, and how that's going to play out going into 2016?
Well, I mean, it is clear that the Latino vote is the most significant voting pattern that we've seen. And I have to respectfully disagree with Professor Perez on his point about the Latino vote. I think it's impressive the way the Latino vote has increased in significance over the last years, and the way it's increasing in significance. That means that the national political leadership is going to have to be attuned to satisfying the needs of Latinos. As far as registration, I mean, there's a big issue about this voter suppression, voter ID. That's a big issue, and that could come up again. Hopefully that can be resolved. But there's absolutely no question that that vote is significant, and it is being paid attention to. So I think that Professor Perez's criticisms about the Latinos, I think, what will be borne out is that both national parties had better be attuned to the Latino vote, or they face electoral disaster. That's been proved in this election. And they're going to grow in significance, not diminish in significance. There's absolutely no question about it.
Well, Mark, we got to leave on that note, but thank you so much for sharing with us. You can catch Mark Meyritz here on Open, giving us political commentary. You can also catch him on Perspectives as well, where he will be sharing more about the election results and the future of both the Republican and Democratic Party post-election 2012. We have to take a quick break, but when we return, we will hear from a business that is giving back. But first, it's Restaurant Week here in the Bronx, and BronxNet correspondent Derek Woods was out and about and brings us the taste, the smells, the sights, and the sounds.
Borough President Diaz took some time out from Hurricane Sandy cleanup efforts to urge Bronxites to savor the Bronx.
We want to move forward as a way to boost morale in the borough in the aftermath of Sandy. And so we know a lot of people can't cook for themselves, don't have the gas or electricity in their homes. Some of them are getting cabin fever. And so we want them to come out and partake with their families, with the community, get together as a family at large, and do so in a way where you can support a business that haven't seen traffic in almost a week.
It's important that the rest of the city know that the storm may have impacted us, but it impacted us the least. So we're asking everybody else, if you need a place, to feel warm and fuzzy, if you need a place to eat absolutely amazing food, come to the Bronx. We're waiting for you. In fact, we insist that you come.
From now through November 16th, 35 restaurants from around the borough will be offering special deals and discounts to promote the borough's distinct and diverse culinary options. Specials include a generous 15% off coupon and the 1641 lunch menu, commemorating the year Jonas Bronk purchased the land that would ultimately become the beautiful Bronx.
We want you to savor the flavor of the Bronx. It's a diverse community. Right now, we're in a restaurant that's Franco-Iberian. So it's French and Spaniard food with some Portuguese influences. We've got French restaurants, Bistro SK, that's participating. They're located in City Island. Of course, we've got Arthur Avenue, which is the real Little Italy here in the Bronx. And we've got Spanish, Mexican, we've got American fare, pub fare. We've got a diverse group of restaurants that are participating in Restaurant Week right now.
We really got to count our blessings, and what better way to do it than to come out, have a bite to eat with your family, spend time out in the community, and help a businessman or woman.
A special website has been set up listing all the participating restaurants or to map out your culinary adventure. Just log on to www.savorthebronx.com.
Right here, Savor the Bronx.
There is also a very attractive extended warranty option that includes free service and parts for the next 5 years. But there's no need for you to get that. You failed to get the test you needed at the doctor that would have detected disease early enough where it could have been treated. So you won't be around in 2 years to see him grow up, which means the warranty would be useless. Okay, sign here, please.
For a list of tests every man should have, go to ahrq.gov.
A large number of small businesses around New York City have been damaged and displaced as a result of Hurricane Sandy. CCP Solutions is looking to help these businesses get back on their feet by donating printers, copy machines, and other office supplies. Here to give us more on what you have to do to receive help is account executive from CCP, Joseph Manning, and we welcome you. Try saying that 3 times. CCP. I'm working on it.
Thank you very much, Darren. First off, we want to thank you all for allowing us to have this opportunity. CCP Solutions specializes in the sales and services of document solutions, copiers, printers, software, and digital retrieval software such as storage document retrieval systems. We provide our clients with the highest level of quality service as far as your copiers and printers are concerned. What we're doing right now is an all-out effort to help. CCP Solutions, we really just want to help the community, businesses specifically. I don't know if you have that flyer up that we talked about a minute ago, but in the wake of the devastation caused by Hurricane Sandy, CCP Solutions has initiated a business relief effort to help customers and companies get back on their feet. And that's pretty much what we're doing. As of Monday, November 12th, CCP Solutions will be providing free machinery, delivery and installation on a first-come, first-served basis. And I'll say that again, as of Monday, November 12th, CCP Solutions will be providing free machinery, delivery, and installation on a first-come, first-served basis to any business that has expressed a genuine need for this temporary solution.
So when you talk about a temporary solution, give it out there, because some people will say, what does that exactly mean? Do they get this copier, and they get to keep it, or this is on a short-term basis? How do you go about it?
This is on a short-term basis, Darren. Again, in an effort to help get your business back up and running. Obviously, we are in business to run business, and so are they. So we want to make sure that we get them back up and running. So it is a loan, so to speak, to get your business back up and running. Power outages, power shortages cause all sorts of shortages or malfunctions within a copier or a printer. And because of that, you're going to see some deprivation in your service as far as your copy is concerned or printer is concerned. So again, the goal is to help you get back up and running. I've talked to some people out in Staten Island. Yesterday, I was fortunate enough to go to Vaca's office, James Vaca's office, and travel with those concerned citizens out to Staten Island. And I spoke with some of the business owners there who were very delighted. I'm sorry, Staten Island. I apologize. Who were very delighted to hear that CCP Solutions would be there to help if they needed some help. I spoke to one doctor who was actually very, very concerned because his business, pretty much drowned, and he has no equipment. He has nothing to operate with, and so we're here to help again.
What kind of equipment are we going to see being loaned out?
Copiers, printers, specifically 30 page per minute black and white copiers, or a printer to complement that.
So we encourage people, it's on a first come, first served basis, and you'll be able to get the assistance that you actually need. We'll throw that information up there as is, and to let you know. It is on a temporary basis. We're not saying that you're going to be able to keep it. It's on a loan basis, but it's really designed to help businesses that have been affected by Hurricane Sandy. What are you hearing in terms of the businesses that have been affected? Are you hearing a lot of businesses affected by this?
Certainly. We have plenty of customers who experience power shortages, who are certainly affected. They have no power, so when they come back up, they're concerned about whether or not their machinery is going to work up to the same caliber and it has as it was working prior to the storm. And it is a major concern. These machines are basically computers. They have hard drives. They have software that can be connected to them. And so it is a major concern for those businesses to get back up and running efficiently and effectively. And that's why, again, we are here to help. Now, I want to put this out there as well. We have the technical expertise to help those customers file those insurance claims quickly and effectively. If you are a current customer of CCP and you do have insurance, then give us a call. We want to go ahead and help you file those claims and get back up and running as quickly as possible. For those non-customers, please still give us a call so that we can be of an assistance as well.
Give me an idea as to what businesses are saying in terms of the turnaround time, since they have been so devastated and damaged by this. What kind of turnaround time are they saying that it's going to take them to really get acclimated and get back up? And what are we hearing?
Well, not so much what they're saying right now, because what they're saying right now is nothing. They're saying, oh my goodness, we're busy trying to, there's no time frame given. No one knows. All we can say is we expected to have power back in 5 days. We expected to have power back in a week. Call me back in 3 days. But again, from seeing firsthand on yesterday, some of the devastation out on Staten Island, there's just no call. But the bottom line is we are here. Whenever you deem necessary to make that phone call, we'll be there available for you.
All right, Joseph Banning, thank you much for CCP Solutions.
3 times, CCP Solutions.
CCP. Thank you for coming and sharing with us.
Thank you so much.
And great that you guys are really assisting in the effort. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today's show. It's definitely been a pleasure coming into your homes. Of course, we want to thank our guests for joining us, and especially you, the viewer, for tuning in. Now, you can tune in tonight for the recable cast of Open at 10 p.m. on Channel 67, Verizon Fios, Channel 33. This episode and past episodes are also available online at bronxnet.org. We encourage you to have an amazing week. Stay safe in the face of this new nor'easter that's heading our way. Don't forget to keep your heart, your mind, and your channel, this channel, I should say, wide open. Stay tuned to BronxNet. We will continue to give you election coverage as well as coverage in the aftermath of Hurricane Sandy. Darren Hyman, for all of us here on the set, saying take care, God bless, and we'll see you soon.